Hey Luca, schon da? Ach, jetzt ist er da. Hi, ja, guten Abend, wie geht's denn? Ah, alles super, war halt heute arbeiten und möchte einfach nur entspannt hier das weiterspielen. Mal sehen, wie es wird. Wechseln mal das Spiel. So. Ich glaube, das alles mit den Bildern passt, mit dem Chat und allem, mit dem Ton. So. Wie ist es bei dir denn heute so? So, jetzt kommt die zweite Hälfte. Das wird was. Ja, genau. Mit dem Anwalt. Nur das zweite Spiel. Ich will es halt gern durchgespielt haben. Wäre gut, wenn ich das diesen Monat schaffe. Oh, der Chat ist ein bisschen hinter meinem Kopf. Ein bisschen kleiner machen. Weiß nicht, ob das halt interessant findest, aber ich finde es halt richtig nice gemacht. Muss halt viel reden, aber es macht schon Bock. Genau. Dann fangen wir an.
Standing here in the bright sunshine, looking out over the vast ocean. Those days in London seem like a dream. But I do miss my time in England's vast capital. You know, he's flourished into a truly wonderful lawyer. I've no doubt that at this very moment, he's fighting some noble cause in court. Forgive me for taking so long to come to visit you. My life has been such a whirlwind since I returned. And no one could have predicted what has happened. Just 2 months after arriving home. So I came here today to ask something of you. Tomorrow, I shall be standing in court. For the only time in my life. As a lawyer. So please, I ask for your guidance. Kazuma-sama.
Episode 1, The Adventure of the Blossoming Attorney. Das kam unerwartet. Oh, warte mal. Die Bilder. Moment. Wäre vielleicht. Kam unerwartet, denn das Opfer ist anscheinend. Das Opfer jetzt war der Mörder im ersten Fall vom ersten Spiel. Und jetzt die Assistentin soll Anwalt sein? Okay. Das finde ich nice. 13. August, 8 8:26 AM, Supreme Court of Judicature, Defendants and Chamber 3. Here I am, again, after 9 months. Manchmal muss ich Mikrofon ausmachen, weil einfach zu laute Autos hier lang. Here I am again after 9 months, the Supreme Court of Judicature of Japan. He's so nervous, but I must see my nerves and find a way to compose myself. Ah, good, you are here. It doesn't do for a lawyer to be late. Oh, yes, good morning, sir. I hardly recognize you. You cut a fine figure, counsel. But you look as white as a sheet, and those white eyes aren't doing you any favors either. Oh dear. The truth is, I'm so incredibly nervous, I feel utterly nauseated. I almost wish that I had never been born. Good, that's not the sort of thing a father hopes to hear from his daughter, I must say. Eugene Mikotoba, professor of medicine of the Imperial Yume University. A man who, earlier in his life, traveled to Great Britain to study the latest advances of forensic medical science. And of course, my brilliant father. Excuse me? Would I be correct in thinking that you are to be my lawyer in court today? Yeah, yes, that's right, miss. Well, I want to thank you for agreeing to represent me. Okay, ja, gut, das dauert vielleicht dann bis später. Ich werde auf jeden Fall noch ein bisschen hier spielen. Wird auf jeden Fall noch ein bisschen Zeit kosten. Dann vielleicht bis später. Genau. Ja, da, also wird auf jeden Fall ein bisschen länger spielen, auf jeden Fall. Dann bis gleich. It's real in my life. It's a complete fabrication, this whole thing. Ray Membami, born the same year as I and my greatest friend. Though unusual for a woman in our time, she works at the University Research Laboratory helping my father. And sadly, she is the defendant in today's trial, accused of committing a truly awful murder. Are you feeling alright? Since we started talking, you seem, well, to have become a little flushed. Oh my, just that. You look so gallant and dashing. Sorry. And when I fall under your intense gaze, well, it makes me feel rather bashful. Goodness, I don't think she knows. She hasn't realized who I am. Yeah, it will seem our little plan for this trial is going to work. Oh, what do you mean, Professor Mikotoba? If even your best friend can see through the disguise, I think we can relax. Disguise? Yes, I've never tried dressing in this way before, of course, so I wasn't sure how convincing it would be. But this does make me feel a little relieved, as you say, Father. Father? What? Is that you, Susato? I'm so sorry I didn't say something sooner. It's just no. What are you doing? What's going on? What? That varsity uniform, that varsity cap, that varsity cape, that varsity badge. Look at you. You look all the world just like a student of the Imperial Human University, a male student. Erstmal Luft holen. Oh. Okay. I'm so glad you think so. It means all my preparations have been worthwhile. I woke at 4 this morning to make a start. But I don't understand. Why are you dressed like that? Well, you see... Was the only way. The only way she would be permitted into the Supreme Court to take on new defense in this trial. What? My defense? Never before in my life I have felt so frustrated at having been born into this body. Courts in Japan are barred to women. We are not even allowed to set foot inside the courtroom. despite the fact that the laws of the land apply to all people, male and female alike. But women are forbidden. Just for today, I will be leaving my true self at the courtroom door, that I can act as your lawyer. Oh, Susato, you would go such a length for me? Of course, you are my greatest friend. Just worry that I shan't be the lawyer that you deserve. No, I have complete faith in you. Hey. So strange, though. I mean, you are such an accomplished judicial assistant already. And yet, just because you're a woman... what a wretched reason. I mean, why shouldn't you be allowed in court? You're so gallant and dashing. Ray? Please don't look at me like that, with those flushed cheeks and doting eyes. I'm sorry, it's just... You really do look so dashing. Yes, you mentioned that once or twice. You should be pleased. It means you look convincing as a man. I am pleased, I think. It certainly helped to bolster my confidence today. Ray, you are managing to put a brave face in all this, but I can see through it. I've noticed how your shoulders are slumped and how you're trembling ever so slightly. Susato. You do believe me, don't you? I didn't do it. I couldn't have. I mean, murder? Of course. You have nothing to worry about. Your conscience is perfectly... Isn't that right? Yes. Yes, it is. Perfectly clean. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind about your innocence, which is why I will stand by you until the bitter end in this trial. Whatever happens, I will always be on your side. Because that's what it means to be a defense lawyer. That means so much to me, Susato. Defendant, counsel. Court is about to begin. Proceed to the courtroom at once. But go in at once, Ray. If you're late, the judge won't hesitate to pronounce you guilty. Oh. Stand aside. Oh. I don't think I've ever seen a hare run so fast. Well, Susato, you have certainly surprised your father, going to such lengths to be admitted into the courtroom, and with no prior experience of being a lawyer. There was simply no other way. All there's to But father, you haven't told her, have you? I mean, I'm right in assume that Ray doesn't know how it come to this. Yes, quite right. I've kept the information from her. Would only worry her if she found out that no other lawyer would agree to take her case. I didn't want to burden her with that. And is it true? The reason why ever other lawyers refusing to take the case is really because of who the victim was? Should be making a move now too. As you know, law isn't my field, but I will do what I can to support my student. Thank you, father. I'm Susato Mikotoba, a judicial assistant. 8 months ago, I accompanied a student of law on a study trip to Great Britain. But 2 months ago, due to unforeseen circumstances, I found myself back in Japan. How many times have I wished that you were here, I wonder? Still, I have no choice now but to steel myself for the trial ahead. Wish me luck, Naruto-san. Let's go! In August, 9 AM, Supreme Court of Judicature, Courtroom 1. This court is now in session to hear the trial of Ray Membani. The execution is fully ready to proceed, Your Excellency. Wow. Defense Council, are you ready? Yes, Your Excellency. We are ready. Ready? Yes, Council. According to your registration details, your name is, Ryotaro Naruhodo. Is that correct? Sorry? Oh, yes, I had to come up with a suitable male name for you for this little venture. So I'm afraid to say I'm simply put down the first name that sprung to mind. Well, Council? Yes, that's right. That's me. Yes, I'm Ryotaro, who has vowed to uphold the pride of the great Naruto clan. It seems that Ryotaro may need to consider how better to uphold this manly act first and not overdo it. And those wild, white eyes aren't doing you any favors either. Just relax and listen. Naruhodo? A fresh face in this courtroom, if I'm not mistaken. But the name Naruhodo, would that perchance be? You may be thinking of Yonosuke Naruhodo, currently in Britain as part of the study program. This is, his cousin. That's right, Ryotaro here has been studying in the provinces but was called in the capital for this trial. I assure you, in matter of law, his knowledge rivals that of any of Tokyo's preeminent lawyers. Any of them. The pitiful situation. Having been rejected by every lawyer in the capital, the accused has had to call in country boy. How dare you! So that was every bit as gallant and dashing of any of your Tokyo attorneys. You won't have you making fun of her. Her? Please be careful, Ray. What an unrefined tomboy we have here. But I wonder, is your gallant and dashing lawyer up to the challenge of defending you? His wide, skittish eyes very much suggest that he is not. I'm so nervous. Now that I'm standing in his shoes, I'm starting to understand what Naruto-san goes through. Like it or not, eyes are wonderful. Case to be heard on this day is a matter of great significance to our national interest. In fact, it would be reasonable to assume that the outcome of this trial may well affect the very future of our empire. Just like the trial 9 months ago. And yet, for proceedings of such importance, we have this unknown chocolate by the dog. Dear me. Perhaps this would be an appropriate moment for me to assess the defense. Determine whether you are as sufficient competent to practice in this courtroom. 9 months ago, when a certain other Naruto stood here where you're standing now. The same judge tested him as well. And even though he was just a student at the time, not even of law, he passed the test with flying colors. For a trained and experienced judicial assistant like you, this will be easy. So, Counsel, do you consent to answering some simple questions? Alright, it's time to prove myself. Yes, Your Excellency, but please don't make them simple. Very well. To start with, you will state the name of the victim. Phew, that's simple. I couldn't forget that if I tried. What's the matter? When I'm standing in his shoes, I'm starting to understand something else Naruto-san goes through. Like, do not minds are one to blank. Not surprising, really. It's your first time in this position and that, guys. Even a bright spark like you is bound to flicker and falter a little under the circumstances. Oh dear, this is a dismal failure. I'm afraid you need only use the knowledge you have gained as a judicial assistant to overcome the problem. Of course, the court record. Yes, answer will be among all the key information about the case in the court record. Right, just use the court record. Then you need to flip the people, blah 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 blah. Yeah, don't take too long over it, blah blah blah, can't man. Alright, check the court record with error. Das will ich nicht. Kennt man. Ich guck mir mal noch das hier an. Victim Giselle Brett. Female British time of death. There goes around 2 p.m. Certain by explanation and witness statement. After a single deep stamp one from behind, pressing a long and resulting in a fatal hemorrhage. Death would have occurred within minutes. Now, it's extreme meiosis, pupil constriction, was observed in the victim in both eyes. Okay. I'm waiting, counsel. What is the name of the victim in this case?
Yes!
Name of the victim who lost her life in this case is Miss Giselle Pratt. Giselle Pratt, a name that will never be forgotten in the courtroom of our country. Correct. And being a member of our empire's judiciary, you will be aware of the significance of that name. So, let me pose another simple question. As you know, Miss Brett was a visiting student from the Empire of Great Britain. Why, then, is her name indelibly associated with our own empire's judicial history? Obviously, you won't have forgotten the case from 9 months ago. If it's proven hard to record the fine points, everything you need is included in the court record. Ah, look, willkommen zurück. Obviously, I still remember. That was the start of everything. Giselle Pratt. Behind the woman student personnel was the face of a killer.
Yes!
Also bisher ist nicht wirklich viel passiert. Also es ist so, dass damals, also in deren Zeit, keine Männer Anwälte sein durften, auch nicht mal in den Gerichtssaal durften. Da aber meine Mandantin einen Anwalt bekommen hat, weil das Opfer wichtige Person war, musste ich einspringen. Also das Mädchen, das du unten links siehst, ne? Also die Charaktere unten links, das Mädchen im Kimono, die ist jetzt die Person, die da vorne ist und verkleidet sich als Mann, um ihre Freundin zu vertreten. Und wir fangen gerade an und sagen, hey, wer war das Opfer, was ist passiert und warum ist es gerade so wichtig? Denn das Opfer hier war die Mörderin vom ersten Fall, vom ersten Spiel. Das klärt sich noch alles auf. Ah, ja. Aber cool. Ja, das ist gerade so viel. Aber ja, das war so die Zusammenfassung. 9 months ago, a visiting professor of medicine at the Imperial University was killed. And the culprit was Giselle Pratt. Yes, she was a killer. At the time, our country had just signed a new treaty with the Empire of Great Britain. And it was the midst of the delicate diplomatic situation that the incident occurred. An Englishman, Dr. John H. Wilson, was shot dead. I believe he was an associate of yours, Professor Mikotoba. Yes, I was indebted to the man. He'd been my mentor when I went to London to study forensic medicine. Indeed, it was I who was invited him here to Japan as a visiting professor at the university. Naturally, the murder of an Englishman on our soil was a matter the government wished to resolve rapidly. Indeed it was, which is why a secret trial was conducted here at the Supreme Court. A student of the Imperial University was arrested on suspicion of murder. A second-year English language student by the name of Ryonosuke Naruhodo. With the help of his best friend, a student lawyer, the accused conducted his own defense and exposed the despicable crime committed by Miss Giselle Pratt. Also nur Zurückerinnerung vom ersten Fall. Miss Pratt eventually admitted to her crime. However, when questioned about the motive that drove her to take Dr. Wilson's life, she gave no satisfactory answer before the trial reached its conclusion. Immediately after the trial, the British government brought its consular jurisdiction into play. We were unable to sentence Miss Pratt according to our empire's law. It was decided that she would be removed to Shanghai, China instead. Why Shanghai? There's a British consular court there. Correct. I oversaw the negotiations personally. The date of her transfer to Shanghai was finally settled upon only last week. All that remained of our empire's obligations was to see the woman safely on board the ship. And yet, the very day before her departure, the Englishwoman was killed. Only the day before? That will do. I am satisfied that the counsel for the defense is sufficiently capable of representing the defendant. Oh. Thank you, Your Excellency. Over the first hurdle. Now, a summary of the incident, if you please. Prosecutor Auchi. As you wish, Your Excellency. Okay, was ist vorgefallen? The repugnant crime took place on the 11th August in broad daylight. On the outskirts of the imperial capital, under bright blue sky, at a circled bathing spot by the sea. The incident occurred inside a small beach hut, erected for bathers to rest or change their clothes. The cause of death was a single stab wound to the posterior abdomen that pierced the victim's lung. An injury which proved fatal. There were two persons alone together in the beach hut at the time of the victim's death. Miss Pratt, in her bathing attire, and the accused Ray Membami. Accordingly, there can be no doubt of the accused's guilt, especially when we consider she had a powerful motive. The police arrived rapidly at the scene and promptly arrested the young lady. Ah, yeah. Well, that extraordinary description of events leaves me somewhat lost for words, I must say. Certainly true, the prosecution summary was full of words that raised an awful lot of questions. Lawyer really ought to pick up the prosecution counsel on what he said about. Oh man. What? Was hat es denn? You're clearly exaggerating. Powerful motive is a blunt overstatement. Is the chocolate boy using long words she doesn't fully understand? I beg your pardon? No matter, let us put out to this accused, shall we? Membami-san, you are a research assistant at the Imperial Yumi University, I believe. Yes, I am. I'm working with Professor Mikotoba in his laboratory at the moment. I can confirm that the defendant is an excellent assistant with a strong sense of responsibility. Fascinating to hear. Now, another question. Prior to your work with Professor Mikotoba, whose research were you assisting then? Was studying under Dr. John H. Wilson. Dr. Wilson? The visiting English professor who was murdered by Miss Pratt 9 months ago? Oh, no. The accused had a deep-seated respect for her former mentor, Dr. Wilson. Is that not true? Yes, Dr. Wilson was a wonderful man. Interesting. Then tell the court what deep-seated feelings you had towards the Englishwoman who killed him. Well, obviously I was filled with hatred for what she had done, a powerful hatred. No, wait, be careful what you are saying. The motive was revenge. Plain and simple, Your Excellency. Well, it was clear a trap all along. How wicked of him to use Ray's undying respect for a former mentor against her like that. Must find out more details and something we can use to bolster our defense. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution counsel on what he said about being along together, the bar things. Barmisa? Yes, what is it? Naruto-san. I'm really starting to wish we had met my alias Ryotaro Susato. Please tell the court why exactly you were present at the bathing spot with the victim in the first place, and why you were alone with her. Oh, well, no, that's not true. Wasn't like that at all. There were other people present, a detective who was guarding Miss Brett for starters. Was just asked to accompany Miss Brett as a companion, that's all. But let us be clear. At the moment of her death, you were alone together with the victim in the hut, you and no one else. The truth is, there is only one reason why this young woman accompanied Miss Brett on her birthing sojourn. It was the accused's last chance to take the victim's life. No, because it was, as we know, the following day would see Miss Brett extradited to the British authorities in Shanghai. And the accused would never have an opportunity to catch her again. Can you refrain from conjecture, counsel? The prosecution counsel seems to enjoy using provocative tricks like that. But for now at least we need to assemble more facts, or not to let him go to you. Oh dear, this is really terrifying, but father's right. Need more information. The lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution counsel on what he said about the birthing spot. If I may, Prosecutor Aochi. What do you want, you fresh-faced young shocked student? I wonder, could you explain, please? You mentioned a bathing spot. My apologies. Clearly my modernity has confused the poor country pumpkin's simple mind. Bathing spots are the very latest trend in health practices from the West. We are told that bathing in the water of the ocean is curative, therapeutic and excellent for the skins. Und was soll das? No, that's not what I meant. I was referring to the fact that Miss Brett had to all to intents and purposes been found guilty of murder. Why would a known criminal have been relaxing by the sea? For all time's sake, I believe. Sorry? Miss Brett was to depart from Shanghai the following day. Her final wish, as it were, was to enjoy a day at our country's wonderful coast. And the British Embassy put extreme pressure on our government to comply. But on what grounds would we agree to such a request? Because, as usual, our government is unable to stand up to foreign powers. Matters of diplomacy, it seems we don't even have the courage to decline the whims of known criminal. Don't look at me, Professor. It was the government who granted permission, not I. In any case, it was decided that with a detective on duty, nothing could go wrong. But in fact, a murder took place. I said, don't look at me. It was the young student girl who did it, not I. Not one has proved that yet. You wouldn't provoke the man if you don't need to. I believe we all have a clear picture of the incident now. Right or guilt being determined 9 months ago, Miss Brett managed to avoid interactions that continuing her research work at the university. Obviously, over that period, she and Ray would have encountered each other on a number of occasions. In the murder of the mentor for whom she had such great respect and showing such undeserved liberty. Even if it was only temporary until Miss Brett's expedition to Shanghai, you can hardly blame Ray for her feelings of anger and resentment. Ray. So, Your Excellency, if you'd be so kind as to peruse this exhibit. A photographic print that shows the scene of the crime immediately following the crime incident. Yeah, thanks, Your Counsel. A tragic image. Okay. Wird doch sehr wichtig. You can clearly see there's nowhere within the hut that anyone else could have hidden. The court will accept this photographic print as evidence. I understand that then the victim and the defendant were alone inside the beach hut at the time. This is deeply troubling, I must say. Finger of guilt points firmly at the defendant. Well, Your Excellency, naturally the prosecution has much more to its case. Thus, we intended to prove that accused are planning actions beyond all possible contentions. To that end, I can confirm that we have multiple witnesses to the crime and damning evidence. Witnesses? But who? One of whom, I might add, is a highly respected police detective. I assure you, the testimony of this witness will leave no room for doubt. Uh-oh. Very well, then, Counsel, bring forth your witness. Okay. Hi, Taketiauchi, I've been waiting for this moment. Sorry? Oh yes, I haven't forgotten. That trial 9 months ago, here in this very courthouse. When that irreverent little student boy utterly humiliated me. Stimmt. Eine so genau da. Yes? That insult to the Auchi family name will never be forgotten. You have become conceited with age, Counsel, but the old have to stand aside and make way for the new. It's the way of the world. May you never forget that. Strike the head of a samurai whose top knot has been cut in the Battle of the Cultural Enlightenment Toss. Yes, on that fateful day, my former self died. The start of your own mini Meiji revolution. Are you modernizing as well, Counsel? Silence! Since I swear revenging back then, there has been a mini miracle atop my head. Serve the Auchi growth. Oh wow. You see this seed of hope sprouting forth from the barren expanse of my crown? Wen interessiert das? I think that tiny growth is trying to tell me something. Oh. I'm afraid I can't really see where's the hope exactly. I said silence. Today, I face another Yokl student of the Naruto clan. Well, I will vanquish you. And my victory will be fertilizer for the seed of hope atop my head. You have been warned. With that, the persecution caused the witnesses to the stand. Looks like the stakes are high on both sides in this trial. The prosecution and defense each has much to lose. The haircut is hardly comparable to Ray's life. Genau. Okay. Nein, was? Nein. Okay. Witnesses, please state your names and occupations for the court. Chief Inspector Satoru Hosonaga, Imperial Police Bureau. I'm in disguise, obviously. So I can go under... Hat eine Schildgurt auf dem Kopf. Okay, cool. And I am, well, the next big things in books. An author renewed throughout the capital, in fact, yes. Soon to be sold out, the satirical I Am a Cat, a sensational success by Soseki Natsume. Oh my goodness. Pregnant student from the provinces, please, you needn't be awe of me. I need... It's only natural that you'd feel nervous in my presence, but all of you, please, relax. Call me Soseki even. Yes. What on earth is Soseki-san doing here? Read carefully, Susato. That author fellow knows you from your time in London, doesn't he? If he exposes you for who you really are, this will be over before it's begun. Yes, of course. I know. I presume Soseki-san won't have forgotten about me. I could certainly never forget him. Also, he does seem to have changed somewhat in the 6 months, or that has been since I last saw him. As for Inspector Hosonaga, the amazing outfit is hard to believe. Do I have something in my face? Well, your glasses for one, although they don't seem to be helping, you see. Thank goodness he hasn't recognized me either. Ah, I suppose it is disguise, is it? I thought that appearing here in the clothes I was wearing at the time would make for a more faithful testimony. My guiding principle to carry out all testimonies flawlessly. Oh, well, I can appreciate why an Imperial Police Bureau detective might have been present. But what business did a writer such as yourself have being at the scene, Soseki-san? Ah, well, you see, I had been asked today to give a lecture. On the morning of the accident, in the Imperial Yume University Grand Lecture Hall, no less. At Yume University? After the lecture, I had a very pleasant conversation with a researcher from the Medical Science Department. Professor over there, in fact. Professor Mikotoba? Yes, that's right. It was arranged by one of the newspapers. They wanted some story of or other about 2 former students who studied in Great Britain. Of course, being a renewed author, the press never leave me alone. They secretly spy, snapshots, descriptive stories, and scupper my privacy. You can see, the conversation was written up in this newspaper here. Mediated leisure, my provincial struggling student friend, I have plenty of copies. Thank you very much. He practically threw that paper at me. Okay. Mir gleich mal an. Anyway, vor allem mein Interview with the Professor, bevor ich das weitermache. Mal hier. Okay. The lady in question appeared and made a very unexpected announcement. I should like to go with everyone to see your country's coast. Those were her words. I explained before, Miss Brett was never taken into custody. Continued to work in my laboratory, under strict surveillance, of course. To which utterance the university immediately contacted the government to seek guidance. The response was, permit Miss Brett to go as long as a detective accompanies her. That detective I am at liberty to divulge was me, Chief Inspector Satoru Hosonaga. There the entire party departed accordingly for the seaside, it seemed. It was extremely challenging to clear all other members of the public from the vicinity of the beach. But fortunately, I am at the peak physical fitness at the moment, so I was able to carry out my duty flawlessly. Oh my, Inspector, you... Well, you do have something on your face now. Ah, how unsightly. I do apologize. Does that mean that you went to the beach too, Father? No. Fortunately, I had work to finish off. But unfortunately, of course, meant that as my assistant, Ray was invited to take my place. Of course, being a renewed author, I did like to decline the invitation. But if I only had, I'd never seen that awful sight. Recently wrecked by remorse and regret. Okay. Very well, I must now ask you to present your formal testimony to the court. You will give an account of all that you witnessed on your impromptu excursion to the coast. Of course, Your Excellency. Relentlessly wrecked by remorse and regret I am. Witnesses seen. On the day of the incident, I was ordered on a special surveillance assignment in this disguise. I just managed to catch that crab when I suddenly heard a cutter roll from behind me. I ran into the beach hut at once, where I found the pyre in question. Yes, that young girl was astride the Englishwoman, dagger in hand, as she stepped wildly. I saw blood on the blade. It proves to me that she stabbed the victim multiple times. Multiple times. Warte. Only a single round. Also das sind so die ersten Widersprüche sind, da steht nur einmal erstochen. Dann sagen die, nein, sie wurde mehrmals erstochen. Meistens so der erste Widerspruch in den ersten Fällen. Aber gut. Indeed, it does appear from this testimony that both witnesses here present saw it. The very moment of this heinous crime. What? Now, if you recall, I promised evidence as well. What phrase did I use again? Ah, yes, that was it. Damning evidence. What have you there, counsel? A so-called fountain pen, is it? Correct, Your Excellency. I found it at the scene whilst examining the body. It appears that in her dying moments with her final ounce of strength, the victim clutched a piece of evidence that would possibly identify her killer. What? Your Excellency, if you would cast your eyes over the photographic print of the crime scene once more. Goodness me. Yes, the victim is clearly grasping something quite deliberately here there in the hand. That's right, the fountain pen. If you would kindly examine the pen, Your Excellency. The owner's initials have been engraved in the bonded barrel. R.M. Ray Mbami. The initials of the defendant. No! The fountain pen will be admittedly as critical evidence. So, have I omitted anything? Decisive testimony and damning evidence. There's a bright blue sky after the courthouse today. Perfect weather to ascribe guilt, I feel. I don't understand. The prosecutor Ouchie of 9 months ago had none of this man's purse. Counsel for the defense, you may begin your cross-examination now. Naruto-san. Naruto? That means... Oh, yes, me. Is there another Naruto in my courtroom? Really, there isn't even a single Naruto in your courtroom. First thing, Ryotaro, pull yourself together, please. Alright. I've seen this countless times as a judicial assistant. Find inconsistencies in the witnesses' testimonies to prove that they are lying somehow. That's all there is to it. That's how a real lawyer would handle a cross-examination. So let's see what I can do. Cross-examination. einfach mal ab und zu. Muss ja auch sein. Speichern. Und ich muss mir noch mal kurz was... Nein, kann ich nicht. Okay. So, dann gehe ich zum letzten Platz. Also, blood on the blade, it proves to me that she stabbed the victim multiple times. Nein, sie wurde nur einmal vom Messer erstochen.
Objection!
With that accusatory cry that just welled up from deep inside me, I think I finally... Every time Kazuma and Naruto-san have stood here at this bench. Stakes have been very, very high indeed. What's the meaning of that menacing pose, Council? I'd like to witness to clarify something for me. Who? What? Where? When? Who? How? Not you, Sasaki-san. The query is directed to at Inspector Hosonaga. At me? In your statement just now, you said that the victim was stabbed multiple times. Yes, that's right. As I said, when I entered the hut, the defendant was already standing over the victim, bloody knife in hand, like a murderous demon. And yet, that cannot be. What? Get to the point, please, Counsel. In the post-mortem report, it clearly states that the victim was stabbed one time only. In other words, Inspector Hosunaga's testimony is clearly flawed. And Suzuki-san? Me? You claim to have seen Memami-san in the throes of stabbing the victim. Yes, I did. Widely. But both you and the inspector confirmed the same point. That there was already blood on the knife that you saw the defendant holding. Yes, and? It's quite simple. We know the murder weapon was used to stab the victim only once. Therefore, there's no way there could have been blood on the knife if that single stabbing hadn't already occurred. True. Then what exactly is your counsel? Are you ever going to tell us? What? Yes, Your Excellency. There's only one logical conclusion. What Sasaki-san in fact saw was not the moment of the defendant stabbed the victim at all, but the moment that the defendant in fact withdrew the blade from the victim's body. That can't be. Excellent work, Susato. You exploded at them with an objection and then proceeded to pull them apart.
Objection!
So, well, this takes me back. Yes, it seems to remember your cousin staged a scene much like this in the trial 9 months ago. A half-witted child with a half-baked objection attempting to steal a show. You are right, there were certain similarities. Except that so-called half-witted child managed to outwit the prosecution, who has only half a head of hair. Slender, my head is quite at rest. In any case, all this talk of stabbing and withdrawing and multiple wounds makes not a jot of difference. What? Why not? Engage your brain, young man. When the accused first plunged the deadly weapon into the victim, that was the fatal blow. And it was that moment, just as he had withdrawn the blade ready for the next strike, that the witness saw. The knife was already tainted with blood because the accused had already stabbed the victim. You have successfully shown with your little display is that the mustached outer is prone to moments of extravagance. Oh shit. Oh, die Autos. I'm in agreement with the prosecution. Brandon was seen wielding the blade at all. That is sufficient grounds for her actions to be viewed with suspicion. But if she was withdrawing the blade, then we are back where we started. Sorry? Consider this, young joggle boy. The student girl as innocent as you claim? Then why would she have pulled the blade from the victim and with a demon's cold-blooded composure too? The prosecution demands an explanation, and it had be better good. Why did Ray pull out the knife? Ah yes, going for the jugular. Huh? What does Father mean by that? The court hear your answer then, counsel. Truth is, I don't really know. I have to come up with a plausible reason here, or we don't have a case. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife blade out of the victim's body was surely so she could had a knife save her life. Ja, es ist manchmal gar nicht gut, das Messer rauszuziehen. Ich denke mal schon. According to the postmortem report, the victim's death was not instant. That's correct. It's though she would have remained conscious for a short while after sustaining the injury. Indeed, giving her the test to take the hold of this piece of evidence clearly indicates her killer. The point is, being a medical research assistant, Mami-san was compelled to act with the face with the wanted victim. Instinctively, he pulled the blade out in an attempt to save Miss Brett's life. Der Staatsanwalt? Ja. Oder meinst du jetzt den gelben Anzug? So. Did you hear that, Your Excellency? It would seem this is the best way we can accept of this young jockey. Ja, genau, der. Achso, der Zeuge. Ja, der hat nur einen Badeanzug an. Keine Ahnung. Indeed. Ugh. Is it just me or does it suddenly feel much colder in here? Ah, meinst du den? Ja. Ja, das ist eigentlich ein Vektor? Man hat ja gerade nur einen Badeanzug an, keine Ahnung. Your Excellency, if I may. Speak, witness. I would like another opportunity to testify. In respect to the slipshot assertion just put forward. Genau, Sonaga, ja genau. Also das ist eigentlich ganz in Ordnung. Hat nur ein Kostüm. Put forward by the Jockey Defense Council, I mean. Slipshot? So. An excellent idea, Inspector. Our young Jockey hopefully was a modicum of knowledge when it comes to the law, it seems. But in matters of medicine, he appears to possess not an iota of common sense. Ja, Mann, die Schildkröte. Ja, und die Frau, die gestorben ist, also noch Mörderin war, die hat einfach einen Schwan auf dem Hut. Also auf dem Kopf. Very well, Inspector. I will permit your request. You will testify again before the court, subject of the defense counsel's assertion. Yes, sir. I will do so flawlessly. Forensic Medicine Primer. Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding. Ja, genau, das habe ich mir schon gedacht. That's basic knowledge that any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense ought to know. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. Let's not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor. Yeah. Is what you just said true, Inspector? Would pulling a knife from a wound really cause the wound to bleed heavily? Yes. Think of the weapon itself as a stopper in the wound that prevents excessive blood loss. Until the doctor is ready to approve a proper treatment, that stopper shouldn't be removed. Oh, I see. Ah, this is why joggers don't stay on the farm. Even a quirk from some obscure mountain village would have such basic knowledge. Anyone who's ever given someone a little pork with a knife and pulled it out again knows it. Well, I never stabbed anyone, you see, or pulled the blade out of a wound, so... Of course you haven't. I didn't bring you up to behave like a bandit. Father, is it true what they're telling me? Yes, it's basic remedial knowledge for medics. Ray would have been well aware of it. If she were to claim ignorance of such fundamentals, that would prove fatal in many ways. But then, why would Ray have done it? Would she have pulled out that knife in full knowledge that it would be fatal for Miss Pratt? Don't know. Ray never once mentioned anything about the knife to me. It seems almost impossible to believe, but... Could my friend actually have... Susato! Yes? Put yourself together. Mustn't lose sight of why we are here. Ah. Council, it's time for cross-examination. Yes, Your Excellency. However, I must warn you that if your cross-examination fails to identify any issue with the established facts, it will be moving to my adjudication immediately afterwards. Wow. I understand. Believing in your clients and fighting for their cause until the bitter end. I knew it would be hard, but I had no idea it would be this hard. Forensic Medicine Primer. Aber vielleicht gab es ja irgendeinen Grund. Aber da muss ich, glaube ich, erstmal nachfragen. Einfach nachhaken. You say doing it without thinking could be a problem. Does that mean if you used your care and attention it would be there, right? I wouldn't have thought this needed spelling out, really, but the blade is like a stopper in the wound. Remove it and serious hemorrhage will occur. In other words, a medic would need to be present before any attempt was made to withdraw the blade. Doing it without thinking would be madness. You just couldn't do it. Aber auch nicht auf dem Bild. Well, thank you for such a thorough explanation. You see, Counselor, when you act without thinking, the result is a bloodbath. Huh. Back to the witness testimony, please. Yeah. In that case, there's an obvious explanation here, which is clearly the defendant, Rei Membami-san, does not possess an ounce of sense. What do you think about that, Professor Mikotoba? I'm not sure that you should be labeling your best friend as lacking in common sense. Well, I thought it would be better than labeling her as a murderer? I don't know, young people today. If that's friendship, I don't understand it. Careful, Counsel. A lack of common sense can be a very dangerous thing. Oh dear, that recoiled on me rather badly. That's life, I'm afraid. A lesson everyone must learn. Hopefully you can see now that this is really basic medical knowledge. Being involved in medical research, Membami-san would certainly have been aware of it. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull a knife from the victim. The defendant had suddenly encountered somebody she knew lying on the ground, bleeding to death. Their sight could have shocked her delicate sensibilities, causing her to remove the blade inadvertently. I really don't think inadvertent actions can explain this. The woman is a medical research assistant. I can't imagine she would behave so irrationally. Oh, but irrational behavior is a woman's prerogative, isn't it? Oh dear, you have a lot to learn about women. Only a small-minded man could have such bigoted views. Oh dear, perhaps I'm letting my male person take hold a little too much. Well, have I managed to convey these basics now? That should cover the medical side of the argument. Let's not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim.
Hold it!
Whatever the motive, it just isn't in Memami-san's nature to do something so awful. But she had both motive and opportunity. That's very hard to argue against. But you don't know the defendant.
Objection!
And you, counsel, do not appear to know the law. Yes, evidence is the only way to convince the court of your argument, not feelings. With the flesh into defend her, I would must say, pity the accused. Ja. Da ist es ja egal. Wenn man lurkt, dann guckt er nur zu. Reicht mir auch komplett aus. So do I. Inspector, you will reiterate your point about the defendant's motive, please. Yes, Miss Brett was in many ways the sworn enemy of Memami-san. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago to the wisdom of the defendant's highly specific mentor.
Hold it!
Well, yes, that's true. Dr. Wilson recognized Memami-san's talent and offered her the position of assistant despite her being a woman. He was extremely grateful to him. Yes, the Englishman appears to have been a very broad-minded individual. Dr. Wilson had no time for outdated traditions. He met with opposition, of course, but he believed firmly in Memami-san's abilities. Really, the defendant was in the man's depth, which only serves to prove my point. This is hopeless. I can't find a single crack in his testimony anywhere. Ray knew that withdrawing a knife from the wound would threaten Miss Bretty's life further. I just can't think of any way to explain why she did it. Sato, it's at times like this when it's especially important to remember the fundamentals. Fundamentals? Evidence is what counts in the courtroom, isn't it? Of course, but I've been through the court records dozens of times already. I think perhaps you've forgotten something though. You needn't take the evidence at face value, you can and must examine it at greater details too. Ah, this is your first time playing the role of lawyer in the courtroom. So if you need reminding of the rudiments, you need only ask. I will do my very best to help. Having the evidence in the court record? It's an idea, certainly. What should I do? Ich weiß, wie es funktioniert. Aber habe ich nicht alles untersucht? Ah ja. Ich muss nur vielleicht nochmal alles genau untersuchen. Ich hätte schon alles untersucht. Ah, jetzt kann ich einfach mal drehen. Okay. Bis hier hinten zerfährst vielleicht. This is the newspaper from Soseki-san. Needs to be an important article on the back page as well. Use of deadly poison stolen from Human Medical Research Laboratory. Ja, natürlich Gift. Human Medical Research? Father, isn't that your lab? What the... Let me see that. The poison's been stolen? This morning's paper that Soseki-san gave us. Are you saying you didn't know? As embarrassing as it is for the head of the laboratory, I didn't. I not heard any such thing. How on earth could that reporter have gleaned this information? Come to think of it, there was no article mentioning the story in our paper this morning, was there? As highly toxic poison, we have been working on the strictest of confidence. I will put Ray in charge of the project. Ray was mentioning it? If what's written here is true, that means that she tried to hide the theft from me. And moreover, details were leaked somehow. I don't believe it. Need to read this article very carefully. Oh no. Deutsches England return is tell all. This is the interview with you as a son, isn't it, father? Look as though it was quite an exchange. Yes, it's become a little over-animated when he was talking about this time in England. The photographer managed to capture the moment his hand covered chopped me on the neck. I do hope you weren't hurt. Oh. Ah, jetzt kann ich den Stift doch untersuchen. Okay, okay, kann ich ihn öffnen. You take off the pin's lid. Aha. Then. Now let's unscrew the barrel, shall we? Oh, irgendwas ist bestimmt da drin. Sag mir nicht, dass da... This must be the little reservoir that hosts the ink. Yes, you fill it by pouring ink from the bottle up to the nib. Something wrong, father? Just that there doesn't actually appear to be any ink in there, that's all. Oh yes, you're right. Pretty much empty. Well, it could be on the verge of running out, I suppose. Oh, ich habe eine vage Vermutung, was da hätte drin sein können. Vielleicht das Gift, was mitgenommen worden ist. Aber ja. Kann ich jetzt dann nicht sagen. Ups, nee. Okay. Das kann sein. Einen anderen Grund, warum man das Messer rauszieht. Ich frage einfach nochmal nach, vielleicht gibt es da irgendeine Anregung oder was anderes zu sagen. Aber ich glaube nicht, dass es auch erst später kommt. Ja, ich jetzt schon ein bisschen Schwierigkeiten habe. Wo ist eigentlich die Tatwaffe? Die will ich aber auch gerne sehen. Versuch mal hier mal was. Nein, okay, passt nicht. Ist doch schwerer als gedacht. Motive. Bin ich auch schon alles untersucht, da gibt's ja, also ich könnte. Ah, okay, warte mal. Hier steht noch was. Following lecture at UMA by Suki Natsume on 11th August, it's come to light that a very disturbing incident took place. A deadly poison being secretly developed in the University Forensic Science Laboratory was stolen. Even deadly in tiny quantities. Even the smallest amount entering the body, either via the mouth or via a wound from a poison-laced blade, would prove fatal in minutes. Current methods can detect and develop chemical. The university would have to be consulted. Why is the poison being developed? Onset of the symptoms occurs in minutes, starting with impaired breathing and ending with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death. Such symptoms would be suggestive of this toxin. It appears an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids and rumored to have been commissioned by the military. Okay. Warte. Doch, vielleicht. Warte.
Objection!
Ja. No, there's one possibility. One very good reason why the defendant might have decided to withdraw the knife from the victim's round. Weil das Gift wurde geklaut. Das Gift wurde auf das Messer getan. Und wenn das Gift durch Mund oder durch eine Wunde dabei gelangt, stirbt das Opfer. Er versucht das Messer rauszuziehen, um vielleicht das verhindern zu können. Sehen, was rauskommt. What? Ah, the yokel not only has a poor grasp of the law, but it's also a poor loser. Tell us then, what possibility do you think you have identified? It's here, in this newspaper article. An article about a deadly poison having been stolen from a laboratory in the Imperial Yume.
Objection!
The victim perished from a stab wound. Poison has no relevance in this case. What? Aochi, you will let the defense speak. But the newspaper's article, the court cannot rely on the kind of hearsay this rich publications carry. Counsel for the defense? I am going to need some tangible verses for your claim. Will indicate to the court precisely what part of the newspaper article mentioned affirms your assertion. Your Excellency? Yes, of course. Thank you. I would never have done something to further endanger Miss Pratt's life without just case. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife from the victim's body is apparent in the article where it says. Ich glaube, es war Seite 2. Ja. 2. Deadly in tiny quantities. The article reveals the following property about the poison in question. When the toxin enters the body on a knife laced with the poison, it's rapidly absorbed, causes death in minutes. Are you suggesting? The knife used to attack Miss Pratt was laced with this very poison? Would explain why the defendant, Memami-san, would have withdrawn the blade as soon as possible. Yes, truth is. It was an attempt to stop the poison from entering the victim's body. What?
Objection!
This is complete and utter nonsense. Not at all. The defendant withdrew the knife blade from the victim's body not to accelerate the woman's demise, but to save her life, and the prosecution cannot deny the possibility. Have you not read the post-mortem report? The cause of death was hemorrhage. The word poison appears nowhere in the document. Well, that's... It's because by acting quickly to remove the blade, the defendant prevented the poison from taking the...
Objection!
Oh please, it is clearly desperation. The weasel's last breaking of wind. Poison has nothing whatsoever to do with this case, as I believe the defense is well aware. We have no proof that the information in this wretched newspaper article is that reliable anyway. Doch, weil da gibt es eine Sache, wo stand es? Ja, okay, hier. In that situation, what the student should have done is wait for medical assistance to arrive. But instead, you claimed the suspected poisoning and took the potentially lethal decision to remove the blade. She must have had a strong reason for her suspicion then, or the argument makes no sense. Exactly, well put, Inspector. On what grounds did she do it, huh, Jokel? Why did Ray suspect the stolen person was involved? If you want grounds, I will give you grounds. What? You can't possibly... From your expression, Counsel, it would appear those are not empty words. But naturally, as you stand in this courtroom as a lawyer, you must be aware that words alone, empty or not, are of no value in our modern justice system. The court demands evidence. Yes, Your Excellency. I'm well aware of that. I've seen it many times, from my place at his side in the Old Bailey. In that case, Counsel, you will present the proof to the court now. What evidence demonstrates a clear link between this case and poison in the newspaper article?
Take that!
I would ask the court to refer the notes section of the post-mortem report, which reads: extreme meiosis, purple constriction was observed in the victim. Ah, clearly. Being a chocolate with no knowledge of forensic science, I have no idea, so please do tell me. Presumably the fact that this condition of the victim was noted in the post-mortem report means that it is an unusual symptom of death. So, well, in normal circumstances the pupils dilate when someone dies. There was extreme constriction instead. That's most certainly unusual, yes. What are you doing, you yokel detective? In the newspaper article there's the following information about the stolen poison. Onset of symptoms occurs in minutes, ending with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death. What? The defendant, upon seeing the victim stabbed in the back, happened to notice that the pupils, as you of Miss Brett's eyes had constricted thoroughly. Yes, as a medical research assistant, she would have suspected poison immediately, without doubt. Prosecutor, ouchie. You think you will agree? This is a very compelling evidence. So, Yokel student and Yokel professor. I believe the defense has expertly demonstrated a credible reason for the... No. Cordova. Yes, Excellency. I believe you are best placed here to confirm or deny the veracity of the defense counsel's argument. You will tell the court the truth about the details reported in the newspaper, please. It pains me to have to admit it, but I'm afraid I don't know. You don't know? The toxin was kept under lock and key in my laboratory, certainly, but I was unaware of any theft. Do you mean to tell the court that the reports of the theft are unfounded? No, Your Excellency. Without returning to the laboratory to investigate myself, I couldn't say. Ah, listen to the bumbling academic. Unaware of the theft of secret state research from this one workplace until he reads of it in the newspaper. I take full responsibility for the incompetence of my supervision. Father? A pitiful situation for a university professor. You should have more control over your students, rather than allowing them off on killing sprees. That's totally None of this is Professor Mikotoba's fault. It's all my fault. Ray? Membadi stand accused here. Outbursts like this will not be tolerated. But it was me. Was the one who noticed that the poison we were developing had been stolen that day. What? You knew? I placed it in charge of overseeing the project. It was the day that the professor and Soseki-san were interviewed together for the newspaper. That's when I noticed that some of the poison was missing, just a tiny amount it was. Why didn't you let me know immediately? I was scared. Our project was supposed to be confidential, but some of the toxin had somehow been taken. So I decided to try to get it back before anyone else found out. Because I had a very good idea who the thief was. The thief? You don't mean? Yes, of course, it was the dainty Englishwoman. Mistress Brett. That's why I decided to join this little group of people going to the seaside. At the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett. But she just sat on the stool on the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me as as if she knew she was untouchable. I know it was you who stole the poison. Well now, whatever do you mean? And then, she suddenly got to her feet, before falling to her knees in front of me and then collapsing on the floor. That's when I saw a knife in her back. Couldn't understand what had just happened. And then, a moment later, I was seized with fear. The pupils of her eyes they shrunk to tiny pinpoints. I don't believe it. The words, you realized that the victim was suffering the effects of the stolen poison. My mind started racing. I hadn't seen anything pass Miss Brett's lips whilst I've been with her, which left only one possible way for the poison to have entered her body. The blade of the knife in her back. And that train of thought was what spurred you to withdraw the blade. Yes, if the amount that had entered her bloodstream was small enough, she might still have a chance. That's what I hoped. Really, I'm so sorry for staying silent all this time. The attempt to hide the truth of what happened is not something that can be overlooked. However, I have duly noted the courage with which you confessed in the end. Thank you, Your Excellency. Barely perceptible, but I do think the balance that shifted a little here. Courtroom now.
Objection!
Your Excellency, do not be deceived. The victim just collapsed before your eyes, you say? Well, Member-san, if that is the case, perhaps you could explain how Miss Brett came to be stabbed. Well, I have no answer because the simple truth is that you stabbed the victim motivated by revenge.
Objection!
But you have no conclusive evidence to prove that assertion, do you? Oh, I have evidence, and it's very much conclusive. What's the prosecution counsel up to? Was brief, but he hesitated for a moment here. I'm almost sure of it. We produced the aforementioned evidence at once, Prosecutor Auchi. Perhaps some praise is due, young chocolate student. What? I'd imagine there would be no need for me to submit this evidence. But you have brought this on yourself. What? Es sagt noch lange nicht, dass sie zugestochen hat. But a more damning shot exists. The quality in the air on the beach is almost palpable. Evidence more than any other reveals the true extent of the accused's murderous nature, but shows the precise moment that Mamami-san plunged her dagger into the victim's back. No, that's not true. No. I don't believe it. Order, order, order. Counselor of the Defense, was it you who was responsible for that shrill scream that just pierced my courtroom? Perhaps his voice has yet to break. These jokers are slow of mind and slow to mature. I show you who's slow to mature. Careful now. Little is starting to show her face there. Here. It's often said that the picture is worth 1,000 words, and here we have ample proof. The court will accept this extremely cogent photographic print as evidence. I believe he has had a photograph like that up in his sleeve the entire time. Such a stark image, I'm genuinely lost for words. Wait a minute, I don't understand. How did you... I mean, who took that photograph? Hey. That's of no importance here, stop trying to divert attention. Oh. That's an absurd thing to say. It's crucially important. Whoever took this photographic print was a witness to Miss Brett's death. The court must be allowed to hear this person's testimony. We'll uphold the defense and demand. The prosecution will reveal the identity of the person responsible for taking this photograph at once. Well, I'm afraid I can't do that. Pardon? You see, this print arrived at the Imperial Police Bureau headquarters by express post yesterday. There was nothing to indicate the sender's name or address. The provenance of the print is unknown. Goodness! Are we to understand then, Counsel, that in full knowledge of the fact that this photograph has the murkiest of origins, you nevertheless believe it fit for submission as evidence in the Supreme Court? You first produced the print before. I noticed that you hesitated for a brief moment, because you knew that it wasn't completely reliable evidence, didn't you? Silence, you joking student and bibbering professor! What matters is the blatant truth that this print is so eloquently expresses. But the defendant has already admitted to pulling the blade from the wound. Clearly, this isn't the moment that the knife was plugged into the victim's back, but the moment it was withdrawn. Don't waste this court's time with your ramblings. Indeed, without knowledge of who produced this print, we have no means of verifying the claim. At the scene it captured is without doubt the most compelling evidence presented to the court. The defense is unable to shed any further light to the matter. I believe the conclusion is clear. Oh no! Doctor, this is the time for you to fight. If what you have established is true, then there can be no doubt. This photograph shows the moment that Ray withdrew the blade from the victim. Yes, we just need to prove that somehow. We'll have plenty of time to view your defeat on the show train back to the provinces. And to view the day you came up against Taketsuchi Aochi in court of law. If I can't determine who took this photograph, then the trial is going to come to an end. Must be a clue somewhere. Must be some way of working out who took it. Well, Counsel. Excellency. Ab da. Der Fotograf, der Indikator fotografiert hat vorhin. Das kann sein. The only question is who took the photograph, and the truth is. Also ich weiß ja nicht, wie das heißt. Aber nur mal kurz da im Hintergrund. Deswegen, ich weiß es nicht. No, I give up. Achso, okay, doch falsch. Ich dachte, das reicht. I will never be able to look Ray in the eye again. Lotto, you need to steel yourself and summon your best argument. I'll do my best. Ja, okay, ich muss doch ja sagen. Okay. This isn't about whether I can or can't come up with the answer now. I simply have to. The identity of the person who took this dramatic photograph in print is, I assure you, something the defense can and will reveal. What? No, you can't possibly. But as you so boldly claim that you can, please, do enlighten us. Unfortunately, I'm unable to present a name. How utterly underwhelming did you really believe you could? However, I'm able to present evidence. Defense has a piece of evidence that reveals important details about the photographer's identity. What? Very well done, counsel. Present your proof to the court. Piece of evidence do you claim reveals something about the identity of the mysterious photographer? Um... Das ist das Gute von. Welche Zeitung?
Take that!
Recht. So, is that the newspaper again? Workers England returns tell all? It's not the headline that's relevant here, Your Excellency. The photograph. If you look at it closely, you notice that there are some white lines on the right hand side. Ach ja, die habe ich auch gesehen, was? Oh, warte, okay. Ich dachte, das war wegen der Zeitung. Oh, das habe ich nicht gesehen hier am Bild. Genau diese Kratzer. Anscheinend hatte die Linse von der Kamera ja, Kratzer drin oder kaputtes Glas. Und es ist dasselbe in der Zeit. Okay. Das ist gerade irgendwie zur Zeit dazu. Aber es war doch wichtig. Indeed, that already caught my eye as it happens. Ah, what of it? A shadow of some kind, presumably? From the branches of the tree all are dark? Yeah, no tree is growing inside my laboratory at the university, I can assure you. Now, if you look closely at this photograph... Habe ich gar nicht bemerkt. Good gracious! Yes, exactly the same pattern of lines present on this photograph too.
Objection!
Well, that tells us nothing. Yes, it's a shadow of some kind, definitely. On a branch of a tree. There wouldn't be any trees growing inside the hut at the beach council. What's quite remarkable about it is that the two patterns are absolutely identical. How could such an extraordinary similarity have occurred? Those matching patterns that appears on both photographic prints is a result of the camera defect. Obviously, it must be due to a problem with the camera used to take the photographs. With the photographic device? Yes, we can confidently say that the camera's lens must be scratched, and that the scratched lens causes unwanted lines to appear on every print taken with the device. In short, two photographs under consideration here were taken with the same camera. But there must be hundreds of such camera devices here in the capital. It would be utterly impossible to identify the owner of this particular one.
Objection!
I think you have forgotten, Prosecutor Aochi, that one of the photographs features in the newspaper article. Newspaper? Ah! Right. The author of the article is the mystery witness to this crime. What? Memi, was? why you were called Workers England returning. What are you yelling about? You already testified. It's many memo. I tell you, many memo. Many memo. Soseki-san, what was that? You say many memo. Ever since I returned to Japan, a reporter from the Yoyo News has been hounding me, following my every move. A reporter by the name of Written Many Memo. Yes, hounding me from dawn till dusk. Ah, not that to mention it. Ja, das ist der Fotograf. The same reporter be... Come out to the left of him and not back to the right. Yeah, I am stuck in the middle of with a Written Many Memo. So you're saying that this picture was taken by Many Memo? Yes. My lord, your excellency, Esquire. Officer, find this newspaper reporter at once and bring him to my courtroom. We will adjourn for a short recess in the meantime. Oh, yes, your excellency. As you say, your excellency. And one more thing. I want this knife, the murder weapon, examined for traces of poison. We will solicit the assistance of the Imperial University Medical Department for the task. Understood? Meh. Many memo. Many memo. Gut. Pause machen, mache ich auch mal kurz 1-2 Minuten Pause. Und gleich wieder da. es weitergehen. Chronicles 10, 41 AM. Record for Judicial Defendants and Chamber. Ich muss sagen, also der Fall, also der Gerichtsprozess fing um 9 Uhr im Spiel an. Da sind 1 Stunde 40 Minuten vergangen. Ich streame seit 1 Stunde 5 Minuten. Die Zeit kommt immer ganz genau hin. Oh, sorry, Susato. Should have told you about the toxin. Ray. You have a strong sense of responsibility, I know. So you decided to shoulder the burden alone. No, that's not at all. I was scared of my failure coming to light, that's all. I hope to retrieve the substance from the Englishwoman before anyone found out. So the trial started. Do you remember what you said, Susato? You had no doubt in your mind about my innocence, that you would stand by me to the last. I remember. Yet I didn't deserve your trust in me. I hid important details from you, Susato. I completely betrayed your faith in me. Hit me, Susato. I deserve it. No, in fact, throw me to the floor. No, it's too good for me as well. Drag me through the city streets. Not better, you know. Even though in my heart I knew that you would pull the knife blade from Miss Pratt's. It was just a brief moment when, in my mind, I adopted you. I'm sorry, after I stood here and promised that you that I would stand by you and always be on your side, I betrayed your faith in me too. Such, I failed you as a lawyer. No. I think the situation has taught both of you a valuable lesson. Placing your unbridled faith in another is no easy task. Yes, Father, that fact has certainly struck home. This is why I can see more clearly now. So, Ray? Yes? Can you find it in your heart to forgive me? Oh, Susato. You know you will always be a gallant, dashing lawyer in my eyes now. Oh, Ray. I was so scared, you know, when it happened. I didn't know what was going on. The Englishwoman was sitting at the back of the hut, listening to what I was saying. I know it was you who started poison. Well now, whatever do you mean? And then, a moment later, she suddenly got to her feet. Before collapsing on the floor in front of me, a knife in her back. It all happened right before my eyes. And you were the only people in the hut at the time? That's right, just Miss Pratt and myself, there was no one else. But I just don't understand how she could possibly have been stabbed like that. Great mystery indeed. I can't believe it happened. That's why I just couldn't bring myself to speak up. We'll be alright. However it happened, and whatever really went on by the sea that day, I promised you that I'm going to prove everything you have said you saw is true. Spoken like a true Mikotoba. Now, I think we should discuss what's coming up in the trial, don't you? Don't have much time, we must make sure we have our facts in order. Yes, I expect the poison is going to come under closer scrutiny in the upcoming proceedings. We should hopefully have identified the blade by now. Regardless, it's a completely new laboratory synthesized blend of alkaloids. Police wouldn't have any way of testing for it. Oh, I see. Yes, without this chemical reagent, it's impossible to detect the toxin. Chemical reagent? I sent a colleague of mine off with some earlier to deliver to police headquarters. I think perhaps you should have some as well, though. just in case. What's the matter? So, we are suddenly very quiet. This newspaper article, exclusive, deadly poison stolen from UMA Medical Research Laboratory. I'm wondering how the information got out, given that it was a government secret. It was all the English woman's doing. What? It was when the professor and Soseki-san were being interviewed at the laboratory. That so-called Englishman lady sworn in, and without any compunction, said the Professor Mikotoba. Oh, Professor, surely your guests would be loved to hear about your work on that substance there? It put me in a very awkward position, to be frank. But Soseki-san's curiosity had been piqued. So I had a little choice but to give him a cursory introduction. So then, Soseki-san knew about the poison? Yes, and it's highly likely. The reporter who was writing up the story about us would have thought a glimpse of the toxin too. Meimo-san. By the way, did that reporter join you all when you went to the beach? Oh, no, I don't remember the reporter being there. Indeed, shouldn't have been. I very much doubt anyone would have wanted him there. Oh. The non-criminal had been given permission by the authorities to bath by the season. Soseki-san pointed out that inviting a reporter might be problematic, so the man was sent back to his office. Yet, he obviously didn't go back. He secretly followed the party to the beach and took this very candid photograph. And then presumably he posted it anonymously to the police. Yes, that must be what happened. Answer. We have just heard the news witness and now ready is to testify. Trial is about to resume. Let's proceed into the courtroom at once. Time to steal our cell phones again, then. Defense attorney, Ryotaro Naruhodo. Yes. Ray has put her faith in me now and told me everything. But I can't let her down. To prove that what she's telling the court is true. I have to prove what really happened that day. August 11:30 AM. Supreme Court of Judicature Courtroom number 1. I will call this court to order as we will continue to the continued trial of Ray Membani. Deputy Aochi, have you summoned the new witness? Before I address that question, Your Excellency, I have some very important news to share. Oh, what news? And why does he look so happy about it? During the recast, with the collaboration of Professor Mikotoba's laboratory at Yume University, the police re-examined the knife that was used to end Miss Giselle Pratt's life. Excellent. I admire your rapid handling of the matter. Oh, too kind. Your Excellency, too kind. I was merely carrying out your instructions, of course. I had the weekend delivered to the police headquarters by rickshaw, so it would be there in good time. But judging by the man's swagger, I fear we might need to brace yourself for the inevitable. And, Counselor, what were the results? This dagger, which was so clearly used to end the life of the victim, has no trace of poison anywhere along its blade. What? Are you sure about that? I would stake the reputation of the police on it. Armed with the reagent, the test is extremely simple. They couldn't have made a mistake. Okay. Wo kommt das dann doch? Wo kommt dann das Gift her? Got the accused feeble accused earlier have been utterly destroyed. Where are... Now the prosecution is ready to call the new witness. The newspaper reporter who managed to capture a photograph of the crucial moment. Well, officer, bring in the witness. No trace of poison in the knife? What if that's really the case? How could the toxin have entered the victim's body? Witness, please state your name and occupation for the court. Write a mini memo of the Shoyu News. I'm with what people like to call a journal. What's a journal, Father, do you know? It could be a contraction of journalist. I'm there where the news breaks, putting pen to paper to catch the scoops so they print the next morning. You don't call me the hero of the Herald for nothing, the nice guy of news. It was you who took this photograph, was it? Well, what have we here? I'm sorry. Oh, brace yourself, people. meinem sets a scoop in the offing. Female student up to foreplay, defended by curious, handsome young lawyer in Supreme Court. Readers will leap this up, will set above the fold at 74 point flag format. Right then, let's start with your name. It's Ryotaro Naruhodo. Next, what made you want to become a lawyer? I wanted to reform our country's legal system, I suppose. Ryotaro has suddenly become very ambitious, I see. I just borrowed Kasuma's summer stream for a while. By the way, my name is Taketsuchi Aoichi. That's a Taketsuchi Aoichi. The so-called dark horse of the Supreme Court, and my objections strike fear into every defense lawyer's heart. No, the readers won't buy that. What? What? Witness? Yes. What this court demands to know is whether or not you were responsible for the taking of this picture. It was delivered anonymously to the Imperial Police Bureau only yesterday. Yeah. I wouldn't be a journal if I didn't click quick when presented with a scoop like that, would I? Sometimes stories call out to me, sometimes I have to chase them down, but either way, you've got to be fast. Fast legs to run with and fast hand to ride with it. It's not good if you don't note it down, I always say. I call my many memoirs. Many memoirs? What? Yes, I remember your face. We met that day when you were interviewing myself and Sasaki-san. Ah, yes, that was me. Many memoir again. But you were supposed to be going back to the Shoyo News office after our meeting. But the scoop is, I didn't. Because that Englishwoman's words had piqued my journalistic interest. Miss Brett's words? A criminal left to do as she pleased just because she happened to be a British citizen? It's source dung. This country's judicial is rotten to the core. Supreme Court rulings aren't worth the paper they're written on. The police are just imperial pawns. Stay your tongue, young man. There are complex political issues that play. Well, anyway, I quickly jotted down this word she said in my mini memo pad. Are you ready? I will read it out. It's the Red Heroes. I'd like to go with everyone to see your country's coast. There was criminal going to some junket. The people needed to know about us. That's why I decided to sneak after them. Get the woman's story so I could hammer her in the press. You mean to say that you need to indeed witness it firsthand? Grim scene portrayed in this photograph? Oh yes, I saw it with my very own journal eyes. From start to finish, with a rear film of my trusty camera. Thank you, meinem-san. You will now give a formal testimony before the court. State exactly what it is that you witnessed of the events surrounding Miss Brett's death. Camera never lies. Each hut was made of shoddy old reed screens, so there were plenty of gaps I could see inside through. The woman was sitting on a stool when the student girl came in and started arguing with her. Seconds later, the girl pulled out a knife, throwing the English woman to the floor as she stabbed her in the back. My swindling Channel spirits burst into flames. Quick as a flash, I whipped out my camera ready to click. I put apart the warp wave of one of the screens and poked the lens for the perfect shot. Okay. Screens, you say? Right. I can see them clearly enough in that great shot. Others were just screens made of coarse woven wigs. Yes, it allows the breeze to pass through and bring some relief from the summer heat. And it was a breeze for me to poke my camera through and see the whole thing hotting up. Going for the time being by a piling invasion of piracy involved. You witnessed everything that happened from the moment the defendant entered the hut. Oh yes, I saw it. I saw the whole thing from start to finish. And you say that you took the photograph through a gap in one of the screens? Luckily for me, they were pretty shoddy woven. I pulled the reeds apart and thrust the lens of my camera through the gap. Did I get away with it, or would I be seen? It was a game of a lifetime. The tendency of a purse is considered admirable, unless I suppose. One whisk on one day, one scoop the next. That's a meinem in a nutshell. Last, it appears we have a genuine witness. Evidence and testimony are extremely compelling, if you may be close to a verdict. No! Wonderful news, Your Excellency. Wonderful. Nevertheless, cannot be denied. This testimony begs one very large question. What question? Exclusive news, a starting photograph, the making of an exceptional story for the reporter. Why then was the story never published? Oh, that's right. Seems clear to me that there are circumstances at play here yet to be understood. More pathetic excuses. Very well then, Counsel. Proceed with your cross-examination. Yes, Your Excellency. There's more to this reporter than me. He's keeping something about this case very close to his chest. So. It was made of shitty old reach screen, so there were plenty of questions to track. The woman was sitting on a stool, and the student came and started arguing with her. Oh, she stepped in the back. Okay. Ich will mal hier nachfragen. Do you swear before this court, do you actually saw the precise moment when the stabbing took place? Ah, the precise moment? I didn't see just that. I saw the whole hellish scene play out, from start to finish. I have here simply plan of the beach hut. Perhaps I could use it to explain the court exactly what you witnessed. Right, you are. It's all here, my mini memo pad. Okay, dann zeig mal her. In the first period in the hut, I'm sure that the English woman was on the stool on the back of the hut here. Yes, the accused's own testimony confirmed that. Just sat at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly. Is what I have noted down. I'm trying to testify now. Try not to interrupt. Then, the next moment, as I was watching, they were a student who ran into the hut. For a while, the pair of them ended up in the middle of the hut, arguing furiously. The woman went for the student, but the girl dodged out of the way. In the flash, plunged the knife into adversity's back as the two passed each other. Ah. To describe as a grim crime indeed. No sugarcoat truth. What meinem says. You should plan, okay. By the way, meinem-san, why is too rare watching the terrible scene unfold before your eyes through the gap in the screen? Did not occur to you to try to prevent the tragedy rather than capture it on film? Journals have to be observed. You can't get involved. That's our reason. Theatre. You didn't ever converse with Miss Pratt at all? Obviously not. The observer always remains the outside looking in. And that's something to be proud of, is it? Excellency, if I may. Yes, Professor. I think the witness' last expertly phrased statement could perhaps be added to his formal testimony. Other, what are you? I will grant the defense's request. Memo-san, you will supplement your formal testimony with the aforementioned statement. Well, nihilism is the foundation of minimalism, but I will gladly prove that my words aren't meaningless. When I once set foot in the hut, I spoke with the Englishwoman. I was there only as an observer. Ja, okay. Schwierig. Really? You didn't set foot inside the hut at all? Are you quite sure about that? I think you may have the wrong impression of me. We're talking about a murder scene here. My nerves were stretched to breaking point already. Alles klar. See, you were scared. Maybe I did have the wrong impression of you, yes? That was all I could do to stifle a scream and hold my hands steady enough to snap the shot. You really should have summoned help before thinking of your camera. Minimalism and humanism don't always agree. And most of the time, in these instances, minimalism comes out on top. Ah. The sculptor of stories, sometimes I have to be cruel for my art. Yes, that's spot on. But he is making all this up. Claims to have spied the whole affair from the start to finish. Louis' nominee is devastating, but it doesn't seem as though he's holding something back, doesn't it? That's how you feel. I suggest that you trust your instincts and press him on everything he said. You have no doubt seen what done many times before in your role as judicial assistant. Yes, I have. I have seen witnesses like this pressed often. I know exactly what to do.
Hold it!
What made you want to see what's happening inside the beach hut in the first place? Well, it's your instinct. I think of a better reason. Oh, I don't know. Perhaps because as well as being proven criminal, the person inside was a young woman. Ah, I see where you're going with this. Brace yourself, people. This painting is trying as a voyeur. That is slander, sir. You had the camera and you were taking pictures without the woman's knowledge. Nope, you have got it all wrong. Little student boy. Sorry. To my mind, as well as the hut was a scoop. Nothing more, nothing less. Scripture, no gender, man or woman, it's all news. It's not even many memoirism, it's basic journalism. Only the courtroom was an indiscriminate. Right, so if it's all buttoned up, can we move on? Will the court then witness what sight befell your eyes when you looked inside the cot? That Winnick's my churn instinct, that's what. I pulled back the reeds, I could see it all clear as day. The woman was sitting on a stool when the student girl came and started arguing with her.
Hold it!
So you actually saw Memi-san entering the hut? Yep, and she was raging like my journal spirit. The achievement we mentioned, what was it about exactly? Stole it! I didn't steal it, that kind of thing. Thinking about the poison, I suppose. The student girl walked right up to the English woman and really started laying into her. I mean, if she laid into her anymore, there would have been eggs. Man should have been an author. His description talents are wasted on journalism. But the student's rantings fell on deaf ears, like a Japanese person listening to English for the first time. He really ought to work on his miles first, though, to be honest. Anyway, the point is that the woman in the dark was mightily angry. And her temper finally got the better of her, it seems. Hear me. Which was the climatic moment that I thought on film. Because later the girl pulled out a knife, throwing the English woman to the floor as she stabbed her in the back. Hab ich schon gehabt? Oh, das ist Bild gemacht. Okay, okay.
Hold it!
Rod is fully aware of your desire to capture the incident on film, I'm sure. But why then did you choose to post the photography anonymously to the police? I'm afraid I don't understand a word that's coming out of your mouth. I'm asking why, as a journalist, you decided not to make a story out of the incident. Think of me as a sculptor who makes art out of the sordid private details of the other people's lives. Never discuss my own personal life on principle. I mean, that's basic minimalism. Not something to boast about. No doubt your burning desire to see the truth exposed and justice done was what motivated you. That is it. That's brilliant. My burning desire to see something or other exposed. Has to be a good reason why he didn't think to write an article about what he saw, though. Your own admission, you were outside the hut. How then did you manage to take the photograph? Ah yes, I'm glad you asked. I put a powder wave on the scene and poked the lens through of the perfect shot.
Hold it!
But the two women inside didn't notice? Ah, obviously not. If they had, where would I be right now? In jail? That's rare. Which you think would make you reflect on what you were doing? No, a journalist's job is to collect little snips of light as untruthful as possible. Leave nothing but footprints. Take nothing but photos. Yes, that's spot on. Did you just make that up? Point is, the witness risked his life and limb to obtain this photograph. Photograph reveals the whole truth. There's nothing more to be said. Von wo genau hat er denn reingeguckt?
Hold it!
Das habe ich schon gelesen. Wieder was Schwieriges. Warte.
Hold it!
Oh, das sollte ich nicht.
Objection!
Ah, ich dachte, das ist... Okay. Ich glaube, das kommt erst später. Echt schwer. Also, ja, warte mal, was hat er am Ende gesagt? Ich gehe mal alles durch, ganz. Eine neue Information, aber ich glaube nicht.
Hold it!
Ja, Switching, blablabla. Ja, kennt man. Ach, wieder hier.
Hold it!
Ja, nee. Okay, also das Bild zeigt nicht wirklich den Angriff. Was danach passierte. Das ist wirklich schwer. Weg, ja.
Hold it!
Put apart the rough wave of. Aber da und das nicht.
Objection!
Und das stimmt nicht. Ah, verdammt. Nicht gut. Gut. Vielleicht war er ja doch da. Aber wie kann ich das denn beweisen? Hm. Soll man das denn beweisen? Was spoke with the uniform? Warte. Und halt glaube ich auch. Ja.
Objection!
Ja. Ah, verdammt. Nicht safen, nicht safen. Loaden. Das ist schwierig.
Objection!
Ja, stimmt auch.
Objection!
Hier ist einfach nur so ein Ratespiel. Weil ich gerade keine Ahnung, was ich nehme.
Objection!
Oh Mann, oh Mann. Immer alles einmal durch.
Hold it! Hold it!
Ja, das stimmt auf jeden Fall auch.
Hold it!
Hospital the hut. I'm sure that the English woman. Genau, sie saß da. Dann ja. Of them ended up in the middle of the hut. The woman went for the student, but the girl dodged out of the way. Okay.
Hold it!
Das ist schwer.
Hold it!
Boah, da gibt es irgendwie nicht viel was zu sagen. Ich glaube, hier muss ich auch irgendwas sagen. Wow, 15 nicht schon mal. Eigentlich ja auch. Nicht zu sehen. Ist hier irgendwas wichtig? Da hinten war das Loch. Ich sehe es erst jetzt. Glaube ich.
Objection!
Schade. Wie sein kann. Ah, ich will unbedingt wissen.
Objection! Objection!
Nee, mir fällt es nicht an. Ich bin, glaube ich, viel zu müde dafür. Ich glaube, ich werde es mir nochmal angucken. Dann das nächste Mal weiter spielen. Ja, ich glaube, ich mache das so. Ich erstmal hier pausiere. Und das nächste Mal dann weitermachen. Gut. Dann danke, dass ihr da wart. Und bis zum nächsten Mal.